Hello friends! In order to fuel you on your journey down any trail you go on, you need the proper fuel to keep you moving. So today, we're talking about food. Stick around. Friends, to start out, let's talk about my cooking setup while out on the trail. I had this little Vargo Bot titanium cook pot. I did a little bit more of an extensive review before my hike. I learned a few things on my hike about this thing, and I'll probably do a second review sometime soon, but you can check out the old review up in the corner there. This thing gave me the ability to cold soak or cook whatever I needed to do. And I definitely took advantage of that on the trail, but definitely read up on how to cold soak different materials because it's not all the same. I suffered one night in the Mazet cells because you gotta cold soak quinoa for like overnight, and I tried to just do the couscous thing where it's like a couple hours and you're good. It was a lot like eating bird seeds, so definitely do a bit more research than I did on that. But this thing definitely served me well for both cold soaking and cooking. It would heat up really quick, and actually I found it didn't cool down too quickly for me. And I did stuff like tea out there occasionally, and I found it to be a great vessel. I know some people complain about the little gasket and it getting stuck on there because it's actually a sealable cook pot, so you can cold soak in it, as I said, or boil water in it. So it's a little bit more versatile than other cooking setups, and it's really lightweight. I know it's a bit pricey though, and like a Snow Peak would have definitely served me better because I think I only cold soaked 2 or 3 nights out on the whole trail, so I could have saved quite a bit of money if I went with like a Snow Peak or a different, more generic brand of cook pot that doesn't have the screw-on lid, but perhaps this will serve me more in the future. Right here, I have the MSR Pocket Rocket 2 stove mounted on a Jetboil fuel can. So, a little bit about the Pocket Rocket 2. It is one of the lightest on the market, and it heats stuff up really quickly, really efficiently. These guys kind of just fold down, and it gets super, super small, and it's only a couple of ounces. Fits all in this nice little carrying case. That's the entire stove. Very, very quick to heat things up. You can turn it up really high so you can get this thing boiling in a couple of minutes, even on a windy day. As for the fuel, this was something I kind of learned out there. This was full when I started the AZT. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's still fuel in it. This is the only gas can I used on the entire Arizona Trail, which is kind of ridiculous. I know I shared some of the stories from Philmont in one of the previous episodes of this gear review. Check it out up there. I think it was in clothing. And we went through probably 3 or 4 of these between 11 dudes over 11 days. So I expected to just tear through these. So I bought a 6-pack, I think, of the Primus gas off of Amazon before my hike, and it was waiting in my resupply box. I didn't end up needing any of them. I learned later that not all isobutane mixes are created equal. These Jetboil ones actually have more energy in them than, say, a Primus or Primus, whatever you want to call it, gas mix. So this actually, for the weight, gets you more water boiled. I know that there was a really good study done on the different heating capacities of these mixes depending on brand, and I will link that down in the description for you guys if you want to check that out yourself. But that gives a little bit more credence to, like, okay, why is the Jetboil one significantly more expensive than some of the other mixes? Because this will actually last you longer. Kind of a really cool thing I learned out there. So it's something to look into. As I said, that'll be in the description so you can kind of weigh out your own price to performance for yourself. But this definitely worked really, really well for me. On top of all that, I used a Sea to Summit long-handled spork. You want the long-handled version so that it can fit down into these food pouches a little bit easier so your hand isn't getting all gooey and whatever. And obviously it's a spork, so it's multiple uses all in one utensil. And it's really lightweight, and these are really not that expensive, so I'd highly recommend picking up a titanium one of these other than like a aluminum one or a steel one. It'll save you some weight, and it'll be just as strong, just as good. So that was all that I used to cook and prepare food out on the trail. Just these items all lined up right here. So now we're going to move on to the actual food that I brought with me on the trail, how I figured out my nutrition, what worked, what didn't. I'm doing this entire trail vegetarian, just to show that it can be done and that it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't, you know, take anything away from you. You just need to plan it a little bit. You need to think about your nutrition. These little open air meals, the green label on the bottom, that means that they're veggie. I ate a lot of rice and beans out there, and by the end of I think my actual days on trail was somewhere around, it was between 35 and 40, but that didn't count any of my zeros or time off due to injury or weather storms or anything like that. I think it was 36 days if I remember correctly. And obviously each night eating either trail mix or like rice and beans gets really old. But I did that for a very important reason. Beans and rice have some of the most calories, the most energy per pound for vegetarian foods. So when you're planning out your hike, if you're doing it vegan or vegetarian or anything, it's really important to look at energy density. So that's the amount of weight you're carrying for the amount of calories you're putting into your body. If you're carrying just a bunch of dehydrated lentils or something like that, it's going to be a lot better than carrying a bunch of dehydrated spinach. There's a lot more nutrients, sure, maybe in that spinach, but what you want to be looking at is carbohydrates and calories, because that is really the fuel that you need. There are some of these meals that if you eat the whole thing, like one, it was like the creamy potato soup that came. I bought just an open air vegetarian kit, and I just took the ones that I wanted. Just the potato soup one is like 200 calories for the entire thing, even though it weighs like not just as much as this one was, the 6.5 ounces. I think that one weighs like 4 ounces. So you're carrying the same amount of garbage, but the amount of energy that's inside of that garbage is significantly less. Whereas this is significantly more. I know there's also pad thai. I took a picture of that. I'll put it in right here. That was absolutely delicious. It was zesty. It came with peanut sauce. I think the meal weighed like 8 ounces, but I think it was over 1,000 calories for the meal. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit more weight. The packaging is the same though. So the amount of weight you have to carry afterwards is just as much for this meal as the potato soup meal that was not any calories as the pad thai meal, which is significantly more calories. So at the end of the day, you're carrying the same weight on your back after that meal, but how much fuel you get from the contents is truly what matters. So that pad thai was amazing, and I felt so good that next day. Would highly recommend, you know, if you're gonna be buying a kit, look into that and find some good recipes. I know that's a cheaper way, is just buy a bunch of dehydrated pieces of meals and then combine it all yourself. Definitely look into the nutrients that you're getting and the caloric density. That energy density is really, really what matters. And as I said in my last video, which you can find up here, all about the toiletries and first aid kit, if you're not getting all the nutrients you need from your meal and you're just focusing on the calories you're putting in, you can even that all out with a multivitamin, or at least supplement it so it's a little bit better. But you want to be focusing on protein, fats, and carbs. That is the most important stuff that you really need to fuel your body for a hike. So rice and beans was kind of my go-to. It's a complete carbohydrate, and there's protein. And on top of that, like in the Santa Fe black beans and rice meal, there's also some zesty Southwest flavor, as they put it. And there's also corn, carrots, and then bell peppers in there. So there's a little bit more to the texture at least, and the flavor. But you're getting those carbs and those proteins, and that's what matters. For vegetarian meals, they're going to be significantly fewer calories in them compared to a proteinaceous animal protein. type thing. So for example, this is sweet potato, chicken, and rice. In this whole packet, there is 480 calories, whereas in this Santa Fe black beans and rice, where's calories? Altogether, there's 640 in here. So actually, this is more energy dense, or there's more calories in this. But this weighs 5 ounces, this weighs 6.5 ounces. So even though there are more calories in this weighs 1.5 ounces more. So you're gonna find animal products do carry more energy in that, the flesh of animals. There's more energy in that than in, say, a bunch of rice and beans. Pound for pound, there is more energy there. But making that distinction, whatever you want to do with your hike, there are pros and cons to it. I felt better about doing a fully plant-powered hike. I felt like that'd be a cool way to not only experience the earth, but also respect the earth in my hike. So I went that direction. I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, but I made it work for me, and I definitely lost a lot of weight when I was out there because I was frequently calorically deficient. I think I lost 30 pounds on my hike. I put a little bit of it back on with some good home cooking since I've been back. But by the end of that, like when I do a big push on the trail 6 days and then a resupply, I was visibly lighter after those 6 days, and without coming back to a base camp and eating like a big meal, by the end of those 6 days, I would feel pretty drained of energy, and I'd have to take more breaks. I'd have to be eating a lot more snacks, and fortunately, I would overpack my food a little bit. But that's definitely something to consider, that you need to be very strategic if you do the vegetarian way with the foods that you choose. If you're doing it just general, like whatever goes, whatever works, you're probably going to have an easier time. But you still got to keep your eye out. Fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So how I would balance my meal plan out every day, because I found when I was hiking a lot, I really wouldn't get too hungry. I would feel energy drained, and then I would be like, okay, this is time for food. But I would never feel physically hungry. So once you get to a certain point with hiker hunger, you're always ravenous if there's food in front of you. But for whatever reason with my body in the heat, I wouldn't feel good about eating. And I'd eat for the fuel, not for the experience of food, and not because I felt hungry. It's because I needed to like go up a big mountain. Okay, it's time to crush a Cliff Bar or energy goo. So I would usually do, moving on to the snack bag, I'd usually do one of these Cool Mint chocolate Cliff Bars first thing in the morning. This was my breakfast every single day on trail. It's 250 calories and 50 milligrams of caffeine. So it gives you a little kick in the butt. I didn't really like heating up water first thing in the morning for coffee, even though I am totally a coffee fiend when I'm home. But this kind of got me my fix, got me kick-started in the morning, some good calories. And the mintiness kind of, you know, freshens your breath. You don't have that gnarly morning breath that way. So I'd usually do one of these first thing in the morning that was caffeinated, and then another one in the afternoon. Let's see, do I have another Cliff Bar here? I might have eaten them all. Ah, here it is. And I do Cliff Bar of a different flavor usually. Like this is a peanut butter banana one. These are really good. So I do like 2 of these while I was hiking. So I'd load them up in my pockets first thing in the morning, maybe with a energy goo. So like one of these guys. These are basically just raw glycogen, carbohydrates, sugar, and a bit of caffeine in this as well. So I would have 2 of these and 1 of these per day with a meal. This is pretty much all I was running off of each day. So I'd only be getting about 1,500 calories per day. Would not recommend that. And I'd supplement that with a bit of this trail mix, but a little bit more on that in a second. So for me, it would be strategic where I'd be looking forward on my day. Okay, I know there's a big hill coming in a half a mile. Now is the time to crush one of these. So when that energy is hitting my muscular skeletal system, all my muscles, filling up that glycogen before I hit that big climb. If I feel a complete crash in the middle of the climb, that's when I'd supplement it with one of these goos. This is what worked for me, As I said, I know I was calorically deficient for a lot of it, so I definitely recommend packing more food than I did, but it worked for me. So one of these in the morning, one of these throughout the day at some point, and then one of these if I was really, really crashing and I needed to keep moving. I would usually pack a few extra of these if I ever needed a pick-me-up in the middle of the day, just so I'd have it. I also use a couple of these Stinger honey waffles. Again, this is just sugar and carbohydrates. It's just getting you moving, and when you're out there hiking, you're burning thousands of calories per day. If you're pulling a 20-mile day, you're probably burning over 4,000 calories. So you don't need to feel shy about your sugar intake. You don't need to feel shy about your carbohydrate intake. Just get that fuel in you so you can keep moving. So that definitely is another good option. And then, as I said, a couple of these goos. I have a few extra in my kit. So if I'm out there for 6 days, I'd probably carry like 8 of them. So I'd have a couple of extra, maybe 8 or 9, depending on the difficulty of the terrain. Same thing with these Cliff Bars. If I was out there for 6 days, I'd get like I'd bring 6 of these, 6 or 7, maybe 8 of these, and then I'd probably bring like a whole 12 pack of these, of different flavors as you resupply, so you don't get bored. But I never got bored of these 2 flavors. That's why they're still around. So that was my snack thing, my dinner thing, and then supplementally, this is a bag of trail mix. I would munch on this throughout the day if I was taking a break. Some nights this was dinner if it was just too cold or I was too tired to get up and cook for myself. Just chow down on some of this. And you'll notice this is in a silicone bag. I talked a little bit about this in last week's video, but for a lot of my single-use plastics, I tried to get reusable bags. I know they're a bit heavier, but helped me feel better about my time out there. And I think all in all, I only used like 3 gallon-sized Ziploc bags just for my garbage for the whole hike. And I didn't throw out garbage as I'd get to a trailhead or anything like that. I carried it all on my back. And when I'd go to resupply, I'd like switch bags if I needed to. But I saved it all. And I think I have a picture somewhere on my phone, and I'll put it in right here so you can see that. And things like this help me accomplish that. So if that's something that's important to you, try to be low impact on the earth while you appreciate it. I'd highly recommend these. You can get them off Amazon for pretty cheap. You can get a kit with a bunch of different sizes. There's some that are bigger, some that are smaller. Yeah. So that was another thing. That was snacks, and I just refill this every time that I get to camp. Another option that you guys can use, this is dehydrated peanut butter. I think I got this off of Amazon as well, and I'd get the big jug and then just fill up smaller bags. I should have used a smaller reusable, but I think all of them were being used by my family when I went out and loaded this one up. But this is, again, it's vegetarian. It's really high in protein, really high in fat. So this is a good thing to, say, put on like a tortilla or something like that as a midday snack. Definitely makes you feel like a human being a little bit, gives you some good calories. Also, I did carry tea and sugar out there. A good warm drink, really, if you're feeling just down on yourself. Just the ritual of heating up some water, steeping a bag of flowers and drinking that, it helps you feel human again, especially if it's cold out. It centers you and helps you chill out. So, would highly recommend that. I think I also have some packets of sugar and salt and Parmesan, just in case I wanted to season anything. So that's kind of a if you need it bag right here. And then for you coffee fiends out there, you can get little dehydrated things of cappuccino from places like the Dollar Tree. And if you're that kind of a person that wants to dedicate that time, like I carry these when I do an overnighter. But for me, through hiking, I felt like I didn't have enough time to constantly do that. So I made do with the Cliff Bars to get that caffeine fix. So this is definitely another good option. I know this is kind of a luxury situation that you don't really need all this stuff, but it was a good morale booster if I ever needed it. And then lastly, for those of you that aren't doing like vegetarian, Light tuna is actually pretty good. And if you mix in a bit of olive oil in here, it gets you more of your omega-3s. Maybe they're omega-6s from that one, but gets you some of those fatty acids that you need. And you don't want to deprive yourself of fat, because that's what your brain really runs off of, so you can get really depressed and down on yourself. And if you're only eating just carbs, there are other parts of your body that need different things to function. So as I said, you need fats, carbohydrates, and protein. Protein, obviously, to repair your muscles. Carbs as your fuel to keep you moving. This gives you a good protein. Dump a little bit of olive oil in here. It gives you some good fats. And as for what I would carry it all in, this is a Big Agnes. I want to say it's a 30-liter dry bag. It could be a 20. I'll put it right here for you. But this actually worked great for the whole trail. It's a dry bag. Obviously, you don't need all your food to stay dry if it's all bagged up and packaged. But it was good to throw it all in here, because you could fill this up with as many days worth of food as you need for a carry and still have room left over. It's a question of if your bag can carry as big as it gets at the end of the day. So I'd throw all this stuff in here, all my food that's smellable, throw it all in here, including my cooking stuff. And then I would run this up a tree, you know, for my bear bag. And I know some people have really liked the Ursacks and things of that nature, where it's like a Kevlar bag. This is a little lighter than that. And for the majority of the Arizona Trail, aside from the desert sections, obviously, there's probably going to be a tree that's close enough nearby where you can run this up bear bag style. And for that, you know, this has a nice little D-ring for a carabiner to clip onto it. And you just have some paracord in your bag. And you want that just for incidentals anyway. If your shoelace busts, you can tie it up with some paracord. If you need to run a clothesline, you can use some paracord. You know, I'd highly recommend like 50 feet of paracord. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit more next week, where I'm filling in some of the miscellaneous stuff that you still probably will want in your bag. And I would carabiner that all with the brain of my backpack, because that's where I'd stash a lot of my snacks and like toiletries that you might need on the run, like Gold Bond. Clip those together, throw the rope over the tree, and then run up a bear bag, as there are many other videos about it. If you have any questions on how that procedure works. Long story short, you want it 200 feet from your camp, and you want a branch that's slender enough that a bear can't shimmy across it, but thick enough that it can hold this weight a good distance away from the trunk of the tree, about like 10-12 feet in the air. That's kind of the quick rundown. So just in closing, remember, you need your protein, your fats, and your carbohydrates. Consider energy density in your foods, especially if you're doing a vegetarian style, because that is literally what's driving you forward. And if you're carrying a whole bunch of weight on your back that doesn't convert into calories, you're wasting quite a bit of weight in your backpack for stuff that isn't going to be as effective for you as you need it to be. And remember to keep your smellables in one container or 2 containers that you can put together, so that you can stay safe from animals and keep your food for you and not for the creatures of the wilderness. As always, my friends, please leave me some comments down below if you have any questions. During the premiere, I'm hanging out just over there in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions. And if you didn't reach me on the premiere, direct message me on Instagram over at trailtime.jake, or email me at trailtime96@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. You take it easy.